Here we are 9 weeks to our average last frost date, and today I'm going to be starting some miscellaneous seeds. Welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Kayla, and the things I'm starting today are generally things that can be started at 8 weeks, but because 8 weeks is kind of busy for me starting all those tomatoes, that I thought I'd start these things a little bit early and it shouldn't be a problem. The first things we're going to start today is some okra. Now I tried growing okra the last couple of years, but I've never really succeeded. But I've also always done it kind of as a last resort, second thought. So this year I'm going to be growing some okra. This one here is Clemson Spineless, very popular one, what most people grow. This is the one that I tried to grow last year. It did grow, it got little baby okras, but I never got anything I could actually harvest. So we don't need a lot of okra, but it's always something nice to try. I'm mostly growing it for my mother-in-law because she loves okra. And also okra is very healthy for you. It has a lot of that mucinogenic properties. That's why a lot of people say it's kind of slimy, but it's really healthy for you. Another little hack is plastic knives. They work really well for plant tags. As you can see, I've already written on them, but I'll just cross it off and then I'll write on the other side or write on this side. And I can use this 4 different times if I want. I've never tried to wash it off. You might be able to even wash it off and reuse them. They've just really worked for me when I've been in a pinch because I am needing to order some new plant tags for sure. And then next, these are seeds I ordered this year. It's called Cajun Jewel Okra. And this is one that supposedly grows really well in our climate. This one says 60 days, whereas the Clemson Spineless says 56. So they're both the same amount of days. But again, okra likes the heat. So this okra might need 56 days of a lot of heat, whereas 60 days of more moderate heat might get this one to grow. So we're going to try it. Those seed catalogs always get me when they say colder climates. I'm in. So again, I'm just going to probably put 4 per little cell here and we'll see what germinates. I'm not sure about multi-sowing for the okra if anybody knows, but if I can separate them, I will. If not, well, at least we'll have a couple of okra plants to try this year. Okay, next I'm going to be starting ground cherries. These are a Kozak pineapple ground cherry. I've only ever grown the Aunt Molly's ground cherry, so I'm not sure if there's a difference. But either way, we love ground cherries, and I can get this package open, then I'll be able to plant them. So ground cherries will self-seed. If you grow ground cherries somewhere, they're going to grow there every year. The problem we have here is that by the time they germinate and start to grow, they don't really have enough time to produce fruit that ripens fully, in my experience. So they have to be started early. You definitely have to think about where you plant them because you're going to be pulling out ground cherry weeds forever. Maybe not forever, that's an exaggeration, but you know what I mean. It feels like forever. And then you think, oh, I'm just going to let these ones grow and maybe I'll get something. And you never do, and they just take up a lot of space. And I have had problems as well with bugs on the ground cherries, little like spider mites and such. So hopefully this year I'll find a new spot where they won't do that. But if they do, we'll just wash them really well. And these are just little tiny seeds, so I'm barely pressing them in. And then when I cover them, I always like to do that gentle pat because that's just basically you want to have that soil in contact with your seeds. And then also when I do the watering, it's not just going to wash it all away. Next, I'm going to be starting my tomatillos. I've never grown tomatillos before, but I saw these. I needed to order them. These are a Queen of Malinalco tomatillo. Basically it's kind of like a longer tapered yellow tomatillo. Again, it's supposed to be a little bit sweet. So that's what I like if it tastes like a big ground cherry. I'm only going to start 1 pot of these because we just want to try them out. And I've learned in the past that when I'm experimenting, I don't need to experiment with a whole row of something. I'm going to grow the whole row of something that I like, and then I can experiment with 1 or 2 plants of the things that I am just not so sure of, how they're going to grow, how they're going to taste. I mean, honestly, most things you grow in the garden taste really good, but you want to be able to use them and maximize all that space that you have. And generally, like tomato, pepper, hopefully tomatillo are the same seeds, will last for a few seasons with pretty good germination rates still. If you watch my last video about seedling updates, you see that sometimes that you can have the best germination, but as the years go on and everything's stored the same, they just don't germinate and then you have nothing. Which is why I really want to get into saving seeds, because if you can save your seeds every year, then you can basically have fresh seeds to grow every year. Of course, it's really hard to save everything in your garden, but one thing at a time, and over time, you'll have a big collection. So these ones are called an Amarilla tomatillo. And again, these ones are round, but they're yellow tomatillo. So we're going to try to grow these 2 different types and see how we like them. I've heard with tomatillos, you do need to have 2 different kinds in order for pollination or something. So I'm not sure if these ones will be okay for each other, but we'll try. I think I might go and buy some green tomatillos already started, and then just to grow those so I can kind of compare. And then if they need that to pollinate, they'll have 3 of them, which should hopefully cover things. And then next I'm going to be starting a few miscellaneous flowers. This is alyssum, which I love growing. It's really got a great smell. It's very low growing. I put it in a lot of my planters. I've always just bought it in the past. You can see I've tried to start it. It hasn't grown, but we're going to go ahead and try to start some more so we can have some for the planters. This I'm just going to toss because, again, the seeds are old and they're cheaper seeds. I'm just covering this. Let's just cover it up and see what we get. I don't know why I like to do that, but I really definitely think I have a little bit of like seed FOMO, like fear of not germinating. Fong? Let's do it. We got some fong here. Just kind of push those in really far too, but we'll see what happens. Like usual, I'll just go and buy some. Actually, I like to a lot of times wait towards the end of the season, and then you can find so many plants at the garden, like they put on clearance at the garden centers, and a lot of them, even if they're half dead, they just really need water and a little bit of attention. Plants really want to grow, and they will come back. If they have a root system and aren't fully dead, you can really nurse these ones back to health. So a lot of times I will at the end of the year buy a bunch of those things. I do that a lot with my pansies too, because they always go on sale at the end of the season. Next, I have some carnations. I tried to grow these last year and I didn't get any, and carnations are my favorite flower. So I'm going to be trying again this year. I haven't grown a lot of flowers in the past. It's mostly just been vegetable seeds. But I do want to try to grow more flowers. Last year I did, and they just added so much beauty to the garden. This is a Chabot's giant carnation. So they must be tall then. 40 to 60 centimeters, 18 to 24 inches. I guess that's not that tall, but the zinnias I grew last year, they were probably at least 3 feet. And then I've got this Chateau Orange Sherbet carnation. I got these at the My Gardener seed sale. It always has a sale towards the end of the year, and they're $1 a pack. So I ordered a whole bunch last year. I wasn't able to start them last year, but we're going to grow those this year. Again, my goal is to be able to grow carnations to add to my bouquets, and this orange sherbet looks really pretty. Another reason I really like to have the flowers in the garden is because everything, especially up here, it takes so long to ripen and everything to change color, that any sort of color you can have besides green in the garden just makes it that much more vibrant. And don't get me wrong, I love that beautiful, lush, green, jungly garden. But those pops of color, they just bring a brightness to it. My other kids also, now that my one daughter's doing a dragon garden, want to do their own gardens. So I think these being orange, my son's going to do an orange kind of garden. Maybe we'll be able to put those in his garden. Speaking of which, we have the Moldavian dragon head, so we'll be starting these for the dragon garden. I do have some in my perennial garden that may have overwintered, hopefully, or self-seeded. I'm not sure how that works. We'll have to get some started so that we can plant them into the dragon garden. I do have some of these seeds too that I saved from the one that was growing over there, but we'll just plant up the rest of the ones I bought from last year. And then next we have a little mini snap mix of snapdragons. Of course, those will be for the dragon garden. I'm not sure what size normal snapdragons are, but these are saying they're only 8 inches. So when they say mini, they mean mini. It's nice that they have the sizes on the packages, because then if you are planning sort of a flower garden, you can just look on your package and see, how far apart you need to plant things, or which ones can go in front and which ones should go at the back. These seeds are really small too, so again, a lot of times with those smaller seeds, you're just putting them on the surface. A lot of times with the smaller seeds, they take a lot longer to germinate. Not everything, it just seems to be common. That's why sometimes, like here we are 9 weeks, if I know something, like I know the ground cherries can take a little bit longer to germinate, starting them a little bit, like that week or 2 extra, is not really going to be that big of a difference. Whereas I've learned in the past, tomatoes, 2 weeks can make a big difference. And if you start them early and can handle all that size, like that's perfectly great. But I've done that in the past, and I've realized that it's still a lot of work to try to harden those all off and drag them in and out. So this year I'm waiting to my 8 weeks, because I still know they will probably be super huge by the time it's ready to plant out. Also, I think because I do have such a strong grow light and I do use some good organic fertilizer, that helps them grow really strong and fast. I'm going to start some parsley. This, again, you can go ahead and direct sow it, but I just want to maybe have a little bit started early, just because I'm almost out of my dried parsley. So I'm going to be needing to get some more here. We like to use that a lot in our actual teas. Okay, and then lastly, we're going to be starting a bunch of basil. Now, basil is another common one you're going to start at 8 weeks before your last frost. So we'll just start it a little bit early here because again, as these herbs are nice as they grow, you can just, if they're getting too big, you just go ahead and chop them off and they're small again, and then you actually have a harvest and you can utilize that. You can grow herbs just like houseplants year round and such. Oops, sorry, I forgot to show you. This is just parsley, dark green parsley. I'm not really sure. There's a few varieties of parsley, but. And then for this basil, this is just basil I saved. It's from 2021. So I'm not sure how good the seeds are. So I'm just going to pack a whole bunch in the middle here and we'll just see what sprouts. I will also direct seed basil, but it takes a while for it to grow and I've never really had much luck. I'd rather start it early and then get it established and I'm going to have a longer harvest window. So here is a lemon basil, which is a basil that's a little bit lemony. And again, like a lot of these herbs, they're so true. Like if you go to the mints, oh my gosh, there's so many different types of mint that have so many different flavor profiles. And if you watch Jess from Roots and Refuge, which I'm sure most of you do, and her basil tea, she was just saying how the lemon basil, like you can really taste the flavors of the basil when you make a tea out of it. So I'm very interested in making a lot of tea this summer. Okay, and then next, this is just a Genovese basil. So it's just your basic standard basil. These seeds are pretty old, so I'm probably going to just plop them all in here. A lot of times with these herbs, you can plant them pretty thick and it doesn't seem to bother them, stunt them or anything. They kind of actually thrive off the competition. And then if you have a really big clump, even if they're not super huge, you can go ahead and separate those and then they're just going to keep establishing in their separate pots. And then I have this lettuce leaf basil. So this is basil that produces pretty big leaves. I would say they're the size of like a romaine lettuce, not the ones I grew. I grew them last year and we really enjoyed them. You can use them for wraps and such, but even just picking like a couple of leaves will give you a lot of basil. And then I have this dark opal basil, which is nice. It just adds that different color. It's a little bit more of, I found, like an earthy flavor, you know, those darker kind of flavors. I did grow this last year, but I didn't get a whole lot from it because again, I just started them from seed right outside and they were under right beside my tomatoes and they just didn't really get enough sun. I do love interplanting, but I think it also sometimes comes at a cost if you don't do it properly to your harvests. So this year, while I will still be interplanting and jamming, I'm sure, a whole lot of stuff together, I'm going to be a lot more conscious of putting things where they're going to thrive instead of just, oh, this is a spot, maybe it'll grow there. At least that's what I'm going to try to do. And then lastly, I have this purple ruffles basil. So another darker basil, but this one actually, if you can see, it's got ruffles all kind of on it. So that looks really cool. You know, when we're growing things, we think about flavor, we think about color, but another thing you can think about is textures and having those different textures in the garden. It's kind of enveloping all the different senses that we have. Last year, I was actually really impressed because I grew marshmallow for the first time. I started my marshmallow plants and oh my goodness, the leaves of them are just so soft. I could not even believe how like velvety the leaves were. So it's definitely nice having all those textures in the garden. So I don't know if you're like me, but I'm walking around the garden all the time. Just kind of, it looks like I'm meandering, but really I'm observing and looking at things and I'm feeling things and just kind of being part of that ecosystem in the garden. So then all these different textures can add something to it as well. So that's not too bad. We only had to start one tray this week. Next week, 8 weeks, tomatoes. Can't wait. A lot more than one tray. And I'm really excited to show you all the tomato varieties I'll be growing this year. And as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.